Hello, and welcome to episode 2 of the Baby Metal podcast. It's December 9th, 2018 for most of us here as we record. The podcast is a place where we gather on something like alternate weeks to discuss news and thoughts on the past and future projects of Baby Metal. We invite you to join us whether you're a longtime fan or have only just arrived. I am Paul, and I am joined by Kevin.
Hello, everyone.
And Garrett.
Hello.
And Vars.
Hey.
All right, so we have made it to episode 2, and that we're recording this actually just after the last known scheduled live appearance that we have of Baby Metal. So they've just finished playing in Australia, and we will start talking about these things. So the first thing I think we can talk about is the date that they just played in Singapore. They opened for Judas Priest December 4th at Zepp at Big Box, and so that was basically the first thing that they did after the Japan shows, and they played relatively short set, but so just so I'm not the one doing all of the talking, what thoughts did you have about the Singapore set? Oh, and I would like to say also, just as a preview, that I'm planning to talk after this about the number of members that there were. So just sort of more specifically about just like Singapore and the show, and we'll definitely be talking about the person who was in the third spot.
I was personally interested they played Metataro there.
Yeah, nice to see that back in the rotation. Excluding what duet with Darth Vader?
Yes.
Right, exactly. I guess they'd rehearsed it for that, and so they had it ready. Elevator Girl too also made an appearance, which was somewhat surprising. That had never been in. I guess, well, it showed up in the festivals, but it never had been in festivals before, and I wasn't expecting it in Singapore, but there it was.
I was excited. It was a good set list, I thought. A little bit of new, a little bit of old. You said we're going to talk about the lineup a little later, but it was nice to see. I'll just say it was nice to see 3.
Yes, I agree.
I think it's quite possible we can't split this up. But I mean, so one definite thing that I felt was there was a lot. It was a pretty anxious year. It was a pretty down, at least second half of the year, and I really did sort of feel like, well, I got a little bit of this at the Dark Knight Carnival, but Singapore was really the time when it really felt like the mood shifted dramatically. That they were back to 3. You know, there was someone in the third spot, and they didn't have any extra dancers. They played Elevator Girl, Metataro. They it really sort of felt like we're back somehow.
Yeah, and all the social media I'm involved with and people I know, I would agree with that assessment as well. Everybody that I saw was elated to see just 3 girls on stage.
Definitely, and I think it was interesting that, I mean, I wasn't expecting, I was sort of more, I was put into a better mood than I was expecting to be by something like that. I mean, like, I was surprised. If we were manipulated, we were well manipulated, I think.
Yeah, just to set the expectation I had going into it, I was expecting to see a carbon copy of what we got in the US and Europe, with 4 people on stage and a similar setup.
Sure, exactly. The other thing that was kind of cool about Singapore was that we have, I assume most people know this, but they went to Singapore. They've gone to Singapore, I think, a couple of times, but there was a documentary that they made in 2012, I think, when they went, very early. It might have been, I don't know if it was their first abroad show. It might have been.
Have they gone a couple of times? I thought that was their first time back since.
Well, there was some sort of anime fest or something that they went to, which I think was different. I think this, but I think their first sort of headline thing, I might have it wrong, but at any rate, right around in that early area, they went, and there was a documentary that had at least a little bit of them going around town and like going into like getting pictures by the fountain and stuff like that. And so a lot of people had a lot of fun going, the fans who knew this documentary inside and out got to go and revisit all those places and sit in the booth where they ate the noodles and, get a picture by the fountain and get a picture with the little light up pens.
And somebody, at least one person I know, bought the same pen. They still sell that pen in the same shop. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
go
pretty
ahead
beautiful.
And write that down real quick.
Yeah. No, in fact, actually, somebody mentioned that when they went into the storekeeper knew like what all the things were that they were going to want. You want this snow globe, you want this pen.
That's incredible.
Apparently, this person had actually worked there, since the documentary was recorded originally.
Makes me wonder if that's almost common for fans in that region to make a pilgrimage, to be so prepared.
Yeah. Well, I know if I were there, I would make that pilgrimage,
Absolutely.
Even if there was not a show.
Absolutely.
So now there's a big concentration of people. But so that's quite cool, and we saw a couple of photos that resulted from that. But I think there was, from what I understand, there was at least one set of people who were making a big effort to really replicate some of the photos and the shots and things from the documentary. And at some point, we'll get them kind of assembled and see them, I'm sure.
I'm sure, yeah.
So, anyway, and one other thing that we might have hoped for from the Judas Priest show was some collaboration. There was a photo that was taken, I think after the show. Might have been before, but at any rate, it had the members of Judas Priest and the performing, the girls in BABYMETAL, or if girls is still appropriate, I don't know. But at any rate, the the three
it's
front
tough.
people. But there was no breaking the law collaboration or anything like that, and we kind of knew there would not have been that, but it's still a little bit disappointing because they did seem like they were very supportive of one another.
Yeah, Rob has said on multiple occasions, well, at least not said, given praise to BABYMETAL, right?
Right, indeed. And actually, there was this isn't directly related, but there was a pretty hilarious little self video that he made of himself with this, I don't know what it is, some sort of like rabbit hat or something that he was wearing.
Thing. Yeah, I saw that.
If you haven't seen that, definitely go find that. It is hilarious.
Why, Rob?
But okay, so maybe that's enough that we can actually just sort of talk about the return to 3. So that was one of the big surprises, really, in a way, of the Singapore show, was that there were three people up there, and the third person was fairly soon identified as Saya Hirai. I think fairly soon after the show, that she was one of the many people that was in the larger group in the Japan shows. I think she might have been the one that was sort of in the spot that Yui was in.
That's what I heard
the
as
Japan
well.
shows. So, which would make some sense, because then she would not need to have learned new things. But
I don't think I'd be totally opposed to keeping just her around instead of going back and forth with 7 and 4 members at a time. Like, just stick it with 3 and keep her in. If Yui can't be in there, just keep her.
yeah, so and thus begins the
Yes.
the speculation.
The great speculation.
Congratulations,
So-
you just hijacked the rest of the episode.
Worth.
Yeah. But of course, yeah. So there is a chance that someone might listen to this sometime deep into the future when all things are known. But at this point, what has happened, of course, is that once she was identified, I'm not actually certain myself that they were intending for people to know who she was, but they made her up fairly heavily and stuff like that. But people figured it out, and they probably knew that someone would figure it out. But then as soon as people knew who she was, then people dove deep and found, all kinds of stuff, and like fell in love within 18 hours.
As only this fan base can do.
Right. So, I mean, I think I was pretty pleased with the fact that I pretty much saw nothing negative. I mean, there was lots of negativity all the way up until that moment when the Singapore show happened. And then suddenly everybody's like, oh, yes, we love her.
Yeah, I'd go so far to say as that's the most excited, refreshed, and I don't know, afraid to use the word normal, but I'm going to use the word normal that I've
Don't use the
seen
word normal.
the fan base that I'm around since heck, Big Fox Festival last year.
I felt it too, dude.
Yeah. No, I think there's reason to be cautious about the identity of Saya as a proposed third person. I mean, like we know that she was one of the dancers, and she was probably hired to be a dancer, but it might well be that we are being introduced to the new person, but it might also be that they're just working out the three. And I think, visually, she seems perfect to this.
I agree.
But I think, like we talked about last time, there's always a question of whether someone agreeing to do 5 shows or whatever it is, that's one thing. Someone agreeing to get on board for the indefinite future is probably quite another, and probably not everybody would go along with that. It's great. So we'll see. It could be that there will be somebody that we refer to as Saya Metal. It might not be. As Garrett was saying, it might be that the plan is for there to be some kind of rotation, although I kind of suspect that the fact that her role was the same throughout all of these shows suggests maybe not. But
well, she had the makeup of other dancers. She didn't match Sue and Moa, right? All
right.
Signs pointed to her not being an equal. And I hate to bring up the lore and whatnot, but you have to remember that what I don't remember the exact wordings, but to paraphrase, what it said was the Chosen Seven can appear in any form, in any number, at any time, or something like that. So it's entirely possible we're just seeing one of the Chosen Seven at this particular time.
Could be. It could be. Actually, there was a piece of that I hadn't quite connected in my head before that I'm only just sort of thinking of now. But yeah, I mean, I suppose that is possible. It definitely is I definitely sort of feel like the makeup and everything and the makeup and the dead mic and stuff is really sort of supposed to make it clear that she's different.
Right.
But I guess the question, what I was talking about before, what I was thinking about before was the possibility that they might put somebody else in her spot. And if there is some kind of rotation, that's what I'm sort of suspecting. Maybe not. It maybe won't happen. Unless Saya's done with this and says, that was fun. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm going to go back to what I was doing.
Yeah, who knows? Was she an 11 play dancer? Does anybody know? Is that how we found her?
I believe she was not.
Okay. That's kind of interesting in and of itself.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it was I'm saying right because I'm reading the chat room. That's not very useful. But yeah, it was another group. I don't think it actually has any direct connection to 11 play. 11 play being Mikiko's dance group.
Right, if you don't know who that is, for those of you listening, the choreographer for BABYMETAL has her own dance troupe called 11 Play. And the community did a great job identifying the 2 backup dancers from the US and EU tour as dancers from that group.
Right. Yeah, so there's another group, and I don't know how to pronounce this. I don't know what language this is even in, but La Vie en Link was the group that I think it's been through a couple of iterations, and I think it may be defunct anyway. But that was who Saya was. That was the group that Saya was in. So
okay.
Anyone else wanna keep going at this speculative topic?
Well, we can keep going around in circles all night if you'd like.
I would not like, but still, Vars, did you have anything that you wanted to add to this? You will have, I think, a lot of talking to do in the next topic anyway. But
yeah. All I can say is that she's great on stage, and I hope she becomes a permanent member.
Okay. So I think the next thing that's of relevance was after the Singapore show, we had the Good Things Festival shows in Australia, which were 3 shows in Melbourne, Sydney, and Brisbane on December 7th, 8th, and 9th. So really close together, actually. I mean, like one day after another. They must have pretty much had to just immediately after finishing start heading off to the next city. But so we are fortunate enough here to have someone who was at the very first Australia show. Uh, so, Boris, why don't you sort of tell us something about your impressions of the Melbourne show?
Well, it was my very first baby metal show. It was a very, very long day and very, very hot day. Um, so I I went very early and probably stood at the barrier for maybe 3 or 4 hours waiting. And all I can say is that they probably put on the best show at the festival. They just destroyed it. The crowd was insane. The mosh pits were insane. I think I nearly got killed in the mosh pit, I swear. Um, there was crowd surfers. There was oh God, I just loved it. I loved every second of it. It was my very first show, and I will never forget that day. Honestly, it was great.
That's pretty fantastic. Yeah, it looked very hot, certainly, and
Yeah.
the fan cams revealed some of those crowd surfers in a very
Well,
annoying way.
there's actually a picture that Good Things put up. I don't know her name, but it was this Japanese girl who was dressed up as I'm guessing Yui or Moa, and I was standing at the barrier, and someone wanted to take a picture of her, so we swapped. And there's a picture of her that Good Things put up. You can see me in the picture as well. Uh, and yeah, that was before Bay Metal played, but like all the Japanese fans were just so dedicated. Like as soon as I got there, they were already at the front waiting. Like they had all their shirts. They were just ready for Bay Metal to play. And all I can say is that all the kitsuners, all the fans, all the people I met are just so generous and so friendly and just I felt like I I felt like I met my new family. It was just so great.
That's really cool, man.
Yeah, I had definitely had this feeling when when in the line for the show that I went to in the summer. It's there's a little bit of anxiety, particular. So I imagine a lot of us have this kind of feeling where there's nobody in our immediate real life circle that has any interest in any other stuff.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's weird to suddenly be dropped into this whole like group of people who are all like very excited about the same thing.
It was crazy.
It's a lot of fun. It is kind of like an instant family, and whatever anxiety you might have about going to a show in the future, assuming whatever, go.
Yes,
Especially
yes.
if you need to go alone, don't feel like you need somebody to go with you. I think that's what's really incredible about this fan base, and that was what struck me first when I showed up to my first line, was how welcoming everybody is.
Oh yeah, definitely, definitely. I did go with a frequent member on the server, known as BM Down Under, please. And
Uh-huh.
I asked him like before, this is like long before the shows, and I asked him where he lived, and he only lived like 20 minutes away from me, so we decided to meet up the station,
Awesome.
and we got there, and he's never been to a show before, so I guess we sort of just guided each other, and we hung out the whole time, and yeah, it was really, really great.
How about the extracurricular activities associated with going to a baby metal concert? Did you
Yes,
partake? Did you enjoy?
yes,
So like the after party, you
very.
mean?
Oh, well, after the show, I did hang out with some people. I got like a text from Lombax to hang out, and eventually they said, "Oh, we're going to the after party," and I didn't know how I was gonna get there, so they ordered Ubers, and we all jumped in, and we got to this after party. It was started by this uh Australian girl called Rachel at her house, and they had like all the DeLoreans on, and they had like drinks, food, and everywhere, and everyone's just sitting there having fun. And it was just great. I was so glad I went. Like I was going to stay for the Offspring, but the humidity was really getting to me, so I was thinking about going to home, but instead I went to the after party and it was so worth it. Like everyone's just so much fun. Everyone wanted to talk to me. Uh, Even some people like sat down next to me and were talking for like an hour, for hours, and yeah, it was just great. So great.
Awesome.
Yeah, very cool. And it's really cool that that you didn't have to travel and super far for this to happen.
Well, yeah, yeah. Like I didn't, I didn't know, I didn't know how. I don't have a lot of money, so I don't usually go to overseas shows, and When they came here, I was just so excited. Like it felt like all these kitsunes were coming to my home and hanging out in my home. And also, I found out there's a lot of BABYMETAL fans in Melbourne. That surprised me a lot.
Yeah,
Time
well,
to start
same.
coordinating meetups.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I do kind of wonder about the bands that played before BABYMETAL, because of course, if all the BABYMETAL fans head for the barrier immediately, none of
Yeah.
their fans can get there, and they're
Well,
our guys aren't going to give up any spots.
from what I saw, the Good Things had this sort of setup where it was stage 1 and stage 2. So like one band played as the other setup, and we stayed at stage 1 because that's where BABYMETAL was playing. And for the most part, like we were like all at the barrier, like right at the front. But I'm pretty sure all the fans of the band were just in the mosh pit, like killing each other, and so
Yeah.
it was fine. And the bands were really good. Like I actually did enjoy watching the bands before BABYMETAL, so that was a plus.
That's good, because sometimes when they're playing with other people, the acts preceding them can be hit or miss.
Yeah, definitely. The bands we saw at stage 1 was Void of Vision and North Lane, both very heavy metalcore, genty bands. So it kind of set the
Nice.
mood for what was coming up.
Yeah, and it did. And Good Things, at least itself, did seem to, they promoted. They actually some of the BABYMETAL fan group was tweeted by them. Like as part of their own promotion. So they've been very supportive of BABYMETAL throughout this whole thing.
Definitely. Like I even tweeted at them a couple of times and they retweeted my stuff. So,
Excellent.
I've definitely supported them. They're great. I love them. I hope they do another one next year.
So so this was there were 3 shows. You went to the Melbourne one on the first day, and the so let's see. It was, I don't know if it was actually hotter, but I definitely had the feeling that they were more caught off guard by the heat on the first day than on the subsequent days.
Yeah, in Melbourne, the humidity was very surprising because we're usually colder than Brisbane and Sydney. Brisbane and Queensland in general is a lot hotter than Victoria. So the humidity was a very, very big surprise for Melbourne.
Yeah. I did sort of feel like you could see it, that they were surprised.
Well, the water that was spread on us was bringing all the body heat, and the flames from North Lane was really getting to me.
Yeah.
I was sweating so hard that whole day.
So another thing that I thought was kind of interesting, comparing the Good Things show. So for some reason in the Melbourne show they didn't have the backdrop. I didn't notice that till I went back and looked at it again today.
Yeah, I was thinking that as well. That was for all bands as well. I think it might have had something to do with the stages. I'm not sure, but they had for all the bands, they had the backdrops in Sydney and Brisbane, but in Melbourne there was no backdrops at all.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even realize that.
It was actually a little strange because you can sort of see through it. So there's like people walking around in the back and stuff. And yeah, I noticed this earlier today. I was watching some of the fan cams, and I do find it a little strange when you have a fan cam that's right at the barrier and you can see, pretty much just the stage and the sort of security area. It's very weird because the security guys are just, a lot of times they're just wandering around talking to each other or spraying people with hoses or whatever, and it's sort of like they're not paying attention to this event. And you don't see anybody who is paying attention to the event. You just see these like guys wandering around like it's no big deal.
Yeah, the security, they were just walking around spraying everyone and taking people out. They just did not care what was happening on stage at all.
Yeah.
I don't have that kind of restraint.
Well, I'm sure, that's kind of what you want in a security guy. But it was kind of cool to see some of the, there's a couple of little videos of them taking the stage from the back and things like that.
I have one fan cam and it's just me screaming and crowd surfing, and it was insane. In fact, I think my favorite mosh pit part of the day was there's a video of it on Twitter and I posted it, but I wasn't the one that recorded it, but was Road to Resistance, where the big wall of death opened up and everyone just smacked into each other. It was great. I was so happy to see that because I wanted Baby Metal to feel welcome when they came here.
Yeah.
As a Wall of Death veteran, I swear Baby Metal has the best ones.
Oh, dude, you know what was
I
crazy to
swear.
me? You know what was crazy to me, right? Like I swapped spots with that girl, and I'm glad I did because she would have got crushed. Where I was the whole time, I was just getting crushed. I was stuck in
Yeah.
the mosh, like I was just getting destroyed. And that Bay Metal had like the craziest crowd out of all of them. Like North Lane had this sort of crowd that was sort of just punching each other in the mosh pit, but this one,
Ew.
Bay Metal, the whole crowd was just moving. The whole crowd was just jumping. Like I couldn't sit still for like 1 second without some dude just like coming up behind me and smacking me. Like it was insane. Bay Metal are just insane.
Yeah.
You hurt your neck, didn't you? Is that what you were saying?
I think I hurt my neck from some head banging and the mosh pit. Yeah.
Common occurrence.
The morning I woke up, my neck was killing me.
That's how you know you did it right.
Yes, it was so worth it though. It was so worth it.
And so for us, on sort of like remote people, there was we were sort of sitting many of us were sitting in one of the discords and chasing fan cams around, Facebook and Periscope and stuff like that. I managed to see, I think, bits, well, maybe pretty much all of all three shows as they were happening through sometimes kind of potato-y cams, but that was actually a lot of fun too, even though it's not the same as being there. You still feel like you're participating.
The thing that gets me is that I honestly feel like fan cams are great, but they just don't do it justice at all. Once you're in that crowd and once you hear how loud it is, like fan cams just don't do it any justice. You just need to be in that crowd and hear it for yourself because every song just sounds great and the crowd is just going nuts the whole time. But most of the time, fan cams are people who can actually hold their camera and they're far in the back and it looks like the crowd is dead. But from where I was, the crowd was far from dead. Like I felt like I nearly died half the time.
Yeah.
It was insane.
Right. But yeah, so I mean, I don't think I have too much that I wanted to say, but there were the three shows. My feeling was that the Sydney show was great, from what I could tell. I mean, like that was just spot on everywhere. And the Brisbane show, I think I would have said was maybe like great minus a hair, but
Interesting. Social media, I think, might disagree with you there, Paul. I've heard a lot of people calling the Brisbane show the best show of 2018.
Could be. Okay, yeah. Well, see, and I wasn't there. I was watching on fan cams. Brisbane. I mean, like, so the thing about the Brisbane show is that it also carries this kind of emotional weight of being, that's it. Nothing else is scheduled. That's the last show that we know that's going to happen, and it's now over. We know at least there's going to be a gap, right? So. So it definitely, it's a little hard to watch that as it ends and they leave.
Baby Metal blues are real.
Oh, dude, I was buzzing for days. I'm still wearing this fan-made bracelet that has Bay Metal Melbourne 2018 on it, like that I received from the after party. I'm still wearing it because I'm still buzzing. It was so good.
Excellent.
Well, I thought you were threatening to like not take it off even for showering. Yeah, that's cool though. That is cool. Okay, is there anything else that anyone wanted to say, Garrett? That you have been unable to get a word in here.
Have we identified the new guitarist?
Oh,
yes.
You're right. Yeah,
he has been identified.
Yeah, so I skipped over that, but Yusuke Hiraga is the name I have. Not somebody I know, but I think from what I've read, maybe you guys know this better, but from what I've read, he won a competition that Omura was judging or something like that. So there was some previous connection.
Oh, interesting. I don't know anything about him other than he was found and we found his name.
Yeah.
Nice. I'll look into it.
As far as I know, I mean, like it I think it sounded great. I think it sounded better than like, some of the Japan shows.
Yeah, it's interesting. Each guitarist kind of puts their own flair on everything.
Mhm.
And
Definitely.
it was kind of refreshing to hear a new take on some of these songs we've all listened to thousands of times. They're still the same songs, but you can hear subtle differences and just kind of how they're played and almost how they're tuned during solos as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely where you can hear the differences. I also kind of appreciate there being differences just because it sort of solidifies my belief and ability to argue that this stuff isn't pre-recorded.
Sure.
Oh man, it was so good. The commies destroyed it.
He's still so excited about it.
The distortion
Love it.
was, oh my god. The high energy was just, oh my god.
I actually don't remember if this was true in the Japan shows, but I definitely noticed I'm pretty sure in Singapore and definitely in the Australia shows that at the beginning of Distortion they've changed it a little bit. There's this like it's a little bit like the beginning of, what is it, Tale of the Destinies or something. There's this like radio static and the whoa whoa whoas are sort of fading in
Oh
from the
yeah.
background.
It's not the same as the other ones.
Yeah,
It was a bit of
it
a
was nice.
different
I liked
build
it.
up. So I was wondering what it was. I was like, what is this? Gimme Chocolate or what's going on here? But Gimme Chocolate already played, but it was Distortion. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's the stuff that I imagine exists only for the concerts. I mean, that's probably not going to be on any released album. That's, we already know how this song starts.
Yeah. The moral is get to a show. It's the best way to experience the music.
Dude,
Yeah.
do it now, please. Don't
Well,
miss it, dude. I'm so hyped.
yeah. Whatever the next one is, yeah. Okay. I think we can move on maybe to the next thing, which actually is also, Varzi will be relevant for this as well. But so a while back now, there was, I forget what it was, but it was on Black Friday in the U.S., the traditional day which you buy everything. They released the Distortion 12-inch vinyl in a couple of different versions. So there was a Japan version that they sold. I think Amazon and Code JP sold it, and you could get it from A-Smart. And then there was a record store day version that you could, in principle, only get by going physically to a record store and picking it up on that day. So that's, I mean, and so what it actually has, I think I've found this a little bit annoying in a sense, is that what it has is two versions of Distortion. It's a 12-inch single with the album version of, or whatever we want to call it, the released version of Distortion on the front, and the download 2018 live version on the back. But what else to say about that? I guess there's the record store day edition is red. And there is a European one and a US one. The only difference is the sticker that indicates, whose record store day it is, I guess. And the Japan one is black. So, who has one?
Me?
I did not get a chance to get one.
Unfortunately,
being that it was Black Friday, I went out of town to visit family for the Thanksgiving holiday and couldn't find a record store local that did it.
Ah,
Yeah, I just got it just before this podcast, actually.
yeah, that's actually, of course, what I was referring to. We know that in here, I guess, but that you just today picked yours up.
Yes, and I opened it up, and it's a very, very beautiful red. I don't know if it's transparent, or I don't know the differences, but it's see-through, and it looks very, very nice. Like, photos don't do it justice at all.
but did you play it?
Well, I need to get a new stylus for my turntable, so not
Oof.
yet. Not yet.
Yeah, so I went out on, I determined that there was going to be a store that was likely going to have one. And, basically it's a chain. I knew they'd ordered at least more than zero, and this was their flagship store. So I went out. I think they were opening at 9 in the morning, so I made sure I got there at least before then. I think I was only waiting about 15 minutes or something. And there was a little bit of a line ahead of me. But that store had exactly one. I got in there, I went in, I picked it up, and when I was done, there were none, So
Jeez.
it was
Wow.
really, I mean, I actually don't think that there really was much competition. But if there had been, it would have been pretty risky.
Well, yeah, my record store wasn't participating in the Black Friday one because, I live in Australia, so it wasn't that big of a thing here. But my record store said, do you want me to pick you up and see if we can get one? And I said, yeah, sure. They were able to get one, so don't think it was a very big release for Record Store Day.
Yeah, and I think it's still possible to buy them. Actually, in fact, there was actually an Australian store that was selling them, as I recall. I don't know if they're still available. So Garrett, you said you had one. Do you have both of them?
No, I do not have one.
Oh, you don't. Okay.
I really want one though.
All right. I have. Well, I have only two of them. I guess
Only two of them. Only two of them.
I don't have the European red one, but I do have I have both the Japan one and the Record Store Day one, and they do differ. The cover art differs a little bit in that the Japan one is kind of like I don't even know how to describe it, but it's not exactly in color. It's much more muted colors. It's more like two-tone, whereas the Record Store Day one has more. It has the colors you're pretty familiar with from the digital single. But one thing I noticed, and I don't know if this makes any difference, but the red one has grooves that go pretty close to the center. I mean, like the main thing is the grooves are not dense on the red one, whereas on the black one there's this huge big blank space. There's the song and then there's a long just empty space after that. So the grooves are much denser on the black one, and I kind of wonder if that makes any difference. If there's if they're clearly not pressed from the same actual master, even if they're pressed from even if they were made from the same wave file or whatever. But I don't know enough about records to know if the red one might be better. It might sound better.
As far as I know, usually black vinyl sounds better, like better fidelity, but don't think it's too much of a difference on colored vinyl. It really depends, like, on the people who press it and master it and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of different things that go into it.
Preparing for this episode, because I saw you ask this question in our little document, I did a little bit of reading on it because I was curious and I wanted to know. The conclusion I found and could come up with was that it doesn't matter, really. What happened is it's probably a different pressing technique. I guess there's two main kinds of technique. One in which, it's pressed as normal and it's even all the way to the center. And I guess there's more expensive kinds of prints that can dynamically change the spacing between tracks or something like that to fit more on the record, but it doesn't really affect sound.
Okay, that's too bad.
So my guess is it's just one company was in charge of X, the other in charge of Y, and they use different machines.
Yeah,
that's my guess.
That sounds likely to me, but there's always been this hope. So I think everybody is, well, I don't know why I say that, but many people are probably aware of the fact that the albums, the BABYMETAL original album and Metal Resistance, have just a really, really small dynamic range. They're pushed as high up as they can go, and I've seen some waveforms of the the vinyl versions of at least maybe of both that make it seem like they have a little bit more dynamic range. But of course, I don't know if that's true. Some of that might be noise. I kind of think that someone checked into it and didn't really, in reality, find that the vinyl was much better. But there's always this hope that we're gonna somehow find a way to back out some of that crushed to the ceiling.
I think that has to do with more with BABYMETAL's mixing in general. But funny enough,
sure, yeah.
I do have Metal Resistance on vinyl, and it has 2 records, so that would increase the sound, but I don't know why. Like, they could easily just press it on one record. It wouldn't make too much difference.
Yeah, I don't know what would make that decision for them, but yeah, I mean, I think it's funny. I actually almost never listen to the studio, versions of anything, and even though I sort of feel like I would mildly object to the idea of remastering the existing things, just because it does not feel like a useful use of time. I would really kind of love to have those albums with something with an appropriate dynamic range. So,
sure.
Anyway, anything else anyone wanted to put on the vinyl topic?
I just bought it.
Oh, congratulations.
There's proof in the chat.
Oh, yes, I see. Perfect. Well, so by the time we record again, I'm sure you will have a review. Do you have a way to play
Put mine now on the stand?
Yeah, I have a record player.
Yeah, that's cool. I don't. I have by now probably a third of the vinyl that I own is Baby Metal vinyl at this point, and I don't have.
For real though, it's gonna
be
be played once on each side, and then I'm gonna immediately hang it up in a frame on my wall, and it's never gonna leave that spot either.
Yeah. Yeah, we were having in one of the discords. We were having a chat about the what do you call them, the mini arrows, the little guitars and things.
Yeah, yo, I want one of those so bad.
And it's sort of like it's the same sort of thing. You get the record to put on the wall, you get the guitar to put on the wall. Yeah. Even though it's a perfectly functional record or guitar.
I actually met someone at the festival who was behind me the whole time. In fact, someone posted a picture and he's in it. But there's a guy called Kieran, and he's like a pure metalhead. And I asked him if he had one, and he said yes. And he showed me a video of him like doing like Judas Priest covers. And then he had videos of him like he has a banjo and he was doing like baby metal covers. It's hilarious.
Yeah. I don't know. Merch. I don't know about merch. All these things, a lot of these things are things you could use. They're stickers or there's candles or guitars or things like that, and it just feels wrong to use them, and yet it feels wrong not to, and so you just have to buy 2 of everything.
Oof.
Exactly.
I wear my shirts. I listen to my records.
Yeah, I can
Same.
respect that. I don't really think that I'm likely to ever sell the things that I have, so it seems reasonable that if I was trying to keep them pristine just so that I could pass them on someday, that's kind of dumb.
Well, it's either
for me at least.
It's either you're a collector or you're a music lover and you like playing music. That's kind of the idea of it.
Yeah.
LTD actually, no, ESP, they actually make like the actual model without all the Baby Metal decals or anything on it, like a full-size guitar.
Ah.
That's the exact same, just without the Baby Metal stickers.
Probably costs a third as much too.
Yeah, well, it's like a little over 1,000, I believe, but I'm actually considering it.
Yeah, it's sort of tempting. I have a different guitar, but so I wouldn't need this in order to be able to play guitar. But and honestly, I can't imagine any context where I would take that out in public and play it. But, yeah.
I'd tour with it. Why not?
Yeah. Okay. So not long ago, since the last recording at least, it was November 28th, 2018, which was the 8th anniversary of Baby Metal's first live performance in the Sakura Gakuin Festival 2010, which is with the footage for which is part of the Smile documentary on the Smile DVD. It's actually kind of cool to watch that too. The choreography is the same.
But they're so much younger, it's fun.
Yeah.
Plus you get the false start.
Yeah, it's worth doing. It's worth going back and taking a look at that. And it's neat that it's 8 years. It means that it's going to be 10, not too far into the future.
Yeah.
One kind of wonders if anything will come of that. It's also going to be the 10th anniversary for Sakura Gakuin itself, which I'm kind of hopeful for. I've kind of decided, or at least in my mind, I've decided that we aren't going to spend a lot of time talking about them here, except in the future we have kind of what is likely to be kind of a news void coming up. There was also Heroban magazine had volume 20 came out as a commemorative issue. It was released on December 6th, so quite recently. It has arrived in my Tenso, warehouse, but I haven't seen it yet. Maybe do any of you know anything about it? It's by the way, I should maybe finish that thought. It's basically it's a commemorative issue for the magazine Heroban, but it actually has something about Baby Metal. Probably I think talking about the Japan shows.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to be in it or anything about it other than that it exists.
Yeah, I looked around a little bit to see if anyone had, sort of surreptitiously taken photos of the pages or whatever, but they haven't. So at some point I'll have to get this shipped to me, probably soon. or it'll get stuck in the holiday mail. But okay, maybe I will just make a quick note. Again, we are mostly, I think, gonna try to make the corral the graphic novel discussions into a single episode that you can skip if you want to. But I will just mention that GMB, Chomichuk, and Z2 Comics did a Reddit AMA. And that was pretty thorough. We'll talk later about like what was in it. And I think I actually can't remember to what extent it is spoilery, but I think it is. So like if you really want to stay away from spoiling anything and haven't read it yet, read the Reddit AMA later. Ask me anything is what that means.
Yeah, there were definitely spoilers in the AMA.
All right. I think we're getting to be kind of late on time here. So does anybody, except for Garrett, whose bird is singing, have something they want to say?
Go see Babe Metal.
Yeah.
Yes, go and see them. I'm prepared to fly across the country the next tour they do.
Mm-hmm.
I did California to Texas this year. It was totally worth it.
The good thing is I live pretty in the central United States, so I can go just about anywhere for the same price.
Oh,
give or take.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I mean that's potentially one reason one could select Kansas City as a starting point. It is very close to the actual geographic center of the U.S.
Yes, I live even closer to it. That's the funny thing.
Oh, really? Yeah, I this summer I flew, and that's fine. I did. It was kind of dumb in kind of thinking back on it. I know that when the Kansas City show was about to happen, I was kind of kicking myself for not going to that one, because if I'm flying, it doesn't matter where I'm going.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
honestly, I wish I would have rather went to one of the later shows instead of the Kansas City one. Just for I felt like the atmosphere was off a little bit from the first half of the show.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah, well, I mean, I had the same kind of feeling that I was mentioning, I guess, with the Australia shows too, that they, regardless of how much they practice and warm up and all that stuff, it really does seem like they improve date to date. Like they sort of hit their stride.
Oh, totally.
So I can see why that could be. Kansas City was just a nervous time for everybody involved, as well.
Yes.
So, I mean, in retrospect, I'm just as happy that I went to a later one. But I know that when Kansas City hadn't yet happened, I was thinking, why did I just pick a short flight?
I'm just happy that it all ended on a happy note.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
No.
After the start to the year the band has had, I don't think it could have ended any better. Well, within reason.
Yes.
Yeah. I am much more optimistic than I have been for a long time, and it feels like everyone around me is also.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's good. So I guess we'll see. I mean, as I mentioned, I guess there's nothing announced. Sue's birthday is coming up on the 20th, and we expect there'll be a tweet, but I don't know if that counts as news exactly. Who knows?
Maybe we'll get a picture again. Who knows?
Yeah, there was, I don't even know if I should mention this, but apparently after the Brisbane show, there was people saw, I don't know, it was like at a koala park or something, that at least Sue was spotted there. I think that's yeah.
Ooh, all the Moa fans are thinking hard right now.
Yeah. So I suspect, from what I understand, it was sort of a family outing, and it's, I suspect we may never even see any evidence of this, but it's still, it's kind of nice that it sounds like there was a little bit of chance to do tourism while they were there, and hopefully they did get a chance to hug koalas. Allegedly Sue got a chance to hold a koala for sure, but anyway,
that's the rumor on the street.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Anyway, okay. Anyone want to say anything get anything else in here before I close this down?
No, that's it for me.
I'm done.
All right. So I guess that is it for this episode. You can join us on the Baby Metal Podcast Discord to continue this conversation, and rating the podcast on whatever platform you listen to it on will help people find it, so please do that if you can. We'll be back here in something kind of like 2 weeks, we believe, and we hope you'll join us when we're back. And until then, see you